Howdy, howdy. Today we're going to build a wooden vent hood for the Elica Arezzo vent hood. This is going to be a step-by-step on how to size the parts to what you need to build it. Obviously, take whatever you need if you're in a cabinet shop with a different program. Hopefully, it's still a general idea on the considerations you need to make. Or if you're doing this as on site or in your shop as just kind of a custom carpenter. Hopefully this is a process to help you along. This is the free version of cabinet, I'm used to using cabinet vision, sorry. This is a free version of SketchUp that you have to make sure you're clicking the right ones. You don't have to pay anything. And I'll show a method to dimension the parts to where you don't have to pay. But there is a cut list extension, and just in general, SketchUp free is not too expensive, and it's a very powerful program that's moderately simple to use. It's very simple to use for a drafting program. Just in general, they're always going to take some learning. There's always going to be a learning curve. So, and if I freak out on something, it's because I'm used to using the program Cabinet Vision. I've used SketchUp for years, but the defaults in my brain are for Cabinet Vision because that's what I use day to day. So, without further ado, I'm going to build this for a square vent hood. If you want to do a curved vent hood, an angled vent hood, craftsman style, farmhouse style, whatever, you're more than welcome to change to that. And just skip to the end on like how I actually size the pieces. I'm just going to start off building it though for a square hood. And if you wanted me to do a video on how to design one of those custom shapes, feel free to do so. Just in general about me, I've been a cabinet draftsman for 6 years. Recently got promoted to a drafting engineer at the cabinet shop that I work at, where I'm in charge of quality control and custom cabinets. And before that, I also went to Austin Community College for architectural drafting, where I learned Revit, SolidWorks, AutoCAD, Inventor. I didn't learn SolidWorks there, sorry. But just in general, this is a drafting program. If you have a drafting request or just a stubborn problem, I love problems. I would love to help you walk through it. So without further ado, let's get into this vent hood. So I'm going to start off with figuring out how big to make it. So I went to Elica's website, went to the installation manual for this, and now I'm down here on page 7. Scroll up. Page 4, it shows the dimensions of the parts. So we're doing this 46-inch version. Most of the time I see this hood paired with a 48-inch range. So therefore they're going to give you a 48-inch hood for that. And typically is the Elica in what I've seen. And so I'm going to use that one. Obviously it's changed to the size you need. Also, typically we build a 60-inch hood for these or just bigger. So I'm going to provide wooden spacers that make that work. If you want to build it to the exact size, just do the exact size and ignore the wooden spacer part of this video. So we're going to do this ear 146S4. And so the dimensions are A from this right side. Zoom in here and make sure y'all can actually see what I'm looking at. A, this point to this point. There's 3/4 inch fillers on the other side if you want to use them, or spacers. You don't have to use them. And then the 22-inch deep is what this front point to this back point. And then the upper hood mounting, upper hood motor housing is going to be E and F. And we're going to have a cutout later that will make that work anyways, but that's what we want. So we have to have a shelf. These are our mounting points right here. You can't see them on that side. So we'll have to have a shelf or just a board going front to back or something along those lines, or I have to go front to back to mount here. So I'm going to do a shelf method. That's the way I've done it for several years now, and it's worked out well. And then the last note we're going to need is this 5/7/16 is the bottom to the top of the bottom housing, and that's where we're going to put a shelf at. So I'm going to scroll down here because it shows the dimensions again. I just want to make sure y'all knew what I was going to be referencing. And then we have the cutouts. First, we got to make it to the hood box. So we're going to start off and think this 22 inches and this 46 and a half. So like I said, I'm going to make it 60 inches long, and then I'm going to do 22 inches deep. Now it's going all the way to the wall. We like to have like a nailer, or whatever you want to call it, wall band, whatever. We want our nailer to go all the way to the bottom of the hood, so that way it kind of blocks it out, pushes it out 3/4 of an inch, and then that allows the tile to go all the way up to it. And then as well, then you can trust, I can trust that. Okay, I made my opening to the size. The wall, the sheetrock does not matter or anything, or the tiling. So we're going to add a 3/4 stock at the panel at the back, and then we're going to have a front panel, obviously. So that's 3/4 plus 3/4, inch and a half, 22 inches deep. So we need it to be 23 and a half. So, and then we're going to do 60 inches long. So let's go ahead and draw that in. So I'm going to do my rectangle tool here. Just in general, I accidentally got into this center point draw by pressing Control. I got out of it. And then down here on the bottom right, you'll see the dimensions. You don't ever highlight them. They're just always active. So I would just type in my numbers. And it helps on SketchUp just to go ahead and think through your numbers first as you go. It's a little bit easier that you can adjust. But just it's not as easy to adjust. So that's why I like just think through your numbers first and get it. So we want it 23 and a half deep, but we're going to have a panel on the front. That panel is going to go, it's going to cap the ends to cover up the plywood edges. So we're actually going to subtract 3/4 of an inch. So that would be 22 3/4 is what my ends need to be, because they're going to go from the wall to the back of that front panel. So I'm going to type in 22, and I can do either a fraction or a decimal. So I'm just going to do a decimal, 0.75. And then comma will get me to my other, my first is my X dimension, the next is my Y dimension, and then it's 0.75. It's 3/4 inch panel that I'm going to be using. Obviously, though, you can change to, if you're doing 1/2 inch, personally, I would recommend 3/4 stock, but anyways, you can change it to whatever you need. And also, we measure it down with the calipers for our CNC machine. It's actually 0.74. I'm just going to use 3/4 for easier math. And then we're going to get 48 inches tall. Now, the reason why I'm making it 48 inches tall is if we think through the room real quick. So, blue line is my vertical. The room is going to be 100, we're going to say the room is 120 inches tall, right? I go over here, most ranges, the range is going to be 36 inches tall. And then they're going to have at least a requirement of 36 inches above film, especially for a 48 inch range. It's going to be a gas range. It's going to burn very hot. So that's 72 inches, obviously, right? We actually, in my shop, we like to build, we like to give another 2 inches. And the reason for that is because we've had inspectors be really annoying about like going off the top of the grades or another measurement. So typically we actually build it 74 inches off the floor. And we actually also typically leave a 2-inch gap at the top. So technically ours would be 44 inches tall, but for the sake of this video, I'm just going to do 48. You can size it to what you would need. And size it based off of your appliances, not my appliances. So now that I've got this part, I'm going to, so this is 48 inches tall, 22 and 3/4 wide. What on earth is that? Okay. And we're gonna make this a component. This is important. We're gonna name it left end. If you want to just name it ends, you can do that, because that will allow us to easily dimension it later on and keep the parts all the way going. And then as well, we can also cheat. So now I just need another one of these. There we go. Copy. Paste. Or, I'm not sure if y'all know, shortcuts. Control C would be copy, Control X is cut, and Control V is paste. I'm going to move these over. I'm gonna draw lines so I can actually size these out exactly where I want. So I want it to be 60 inches wide. Make sure I get my green line, 60, nope, bumped my mouse, sorry, 60 inches. No, see, that did not line at the point that I wanted. One second. Wait, I'm wanting to go from this point to the far right. So when I move this right end, click it, I'm going to do the move tool, and I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to get this back right point. Then when I zoom out, I can click it exactly to this point right there. And now this line was going from the far left to the far right of my hood on the back edge. And now I've put this left end, the right end. Okay. So now I've got my right end. Let me rename this. Right. Now we've got our left end, right end. Look at that, we're making great progress already. Okay, and then now I'm going to put some nailers in here. You can just do an entire back. It's only 48 inches tall. That's right on the line. But that's fine. That does work. So we'll just go ahead and do that. We'll do a 48-inch line. And also consider about your wood grain. Obviously, if you made these vertical grain, this is 68 inches by 48 inches. So you're going to end up having to do horizontal grain or have a seam in there. So if you're doing stained grain, I'd recommend making sure that you cut these horizontal grain so that your front panel can be horizontal and it all wraps around. And we did that this week at work, and it actually looked very good. So let's do our back. So I'm just gonna middle mouse click and shift is how you kind of pan. So I'm gonna follow this edge and then go this way, and so it's already lined up with the length of our panel. We just need to say, so if you look down on the bottom right, it's going to do, I need to do the thickness of the part, and it's going to do the 48. Oops, doesn't help when I misclick. 0.75, 48. There we go. And then we're going to take that, we're going to do our extension tool. I didn't want that. Pan over, and we're going to drop it, oh gosh, right there. Perfect. Okay, so now we've got our back in here. Now you're going to say, where on earth are you going to? Can't really see the wall. If you want to do a cutout, we typically do a cutout right here. The reason why we do that is so that way we can supply a French cleat miter, so that way you could just install the board on the wall first, hang the whole hood on there. But as well, if you want to do nailers that are only 8 inches tall on top and bottom, feel free to do that method. Like I said, bend it to whatever you want. And then we're going to make our front panel. Click this point down. Oop, nope. Sensitive. Scrolling. There we go. At that point, and we're going to extend this outwards. 0.75. Now we've got our vent head. We've got our front panel. We've got the nailer. Also consider whether or not you want dados on that, so that part needs to be longer. Didn't do dado. But we got that, and now we just got to consider, oh, you know what I did the wrong thing? I forgot to make these parts a component. Let me select those. So box selects this way, we'll just select what I put in the boundary box. So therefore, this cabinet, the left end and right end are not fully in the boundary. But if I do that, they are. But if I do the other direction, it selects everything it touches. So we're going to make this component, and we're going to name this back. I'm going to name this one. Well, make a component first there. Front panel. Great. Okay. And then now we just need a top and a bottom. So just follow these lines around right to this point. Perfect. I'm going to click on the top, but I'm going to extend it down. It's kind of hard to see. It's going up, and then we go down. 0.75. And you gotta trust me that's there, but if I do this, it's like that. I select all those lines, and I can make that a component, and it'd be my top. Create, and I'm going to double click on it so I can edit it. It's good to consider having a cutout for the vent pipe. If you didn't know where that was, you could just do a kind of random size. What we typically do is just kind of go over 8 inches at that point. I'll go forward. Sometimes we do a diagonal, but for this, I'm just going to do this forward. You know, most of those, I guess I'll do it. Yeah, I'm going to do 12 inches. Do that from both sides. 8 inches. Forward 12 inches. There we go. Now I got this little cutout, and now I can extend down again. And once it hits that offset, it will delete the rest of it. There we go. Now we got a nice little cutout for that vent pipe to come down. Okay, so now we just need on the bottom. But this is when we need to go back to our spec sheet. So if you jump forward to this point, now we're going to actually make the cutout for the vent itself, now that we got our hood built. So we want to do the bottom. We want to put a shelf up here. That's the height of the bottom from the bottom. Now we have to do a little bit more. So either 1/2 inch, 1 inch, I'd recommend. And Elica actually does recommend that. So let's look at their reference photos real quick, just to make sure we know how it was intended to be installed. So you have this flush install, so you can make it right on the money if you want to. But you also have this install where it's 2 inches up. So just in general in our shop, we do 1 inch inset recess for it. So that's not actually on this dimension, so we're going to scroll back up to the top real quick. See, that's 5 7/16. I know that that's the number, but now I got to find it. There we go. 5 7/16, and then we're going to add 1 inch. So we'll actually have our shelf start at 6 7/16 from the bottom, so that way it's up there for these holes to fire into, or to drill into. And we're going to do 7 7. Gosh, 7 7/16. There we go. So I'm just going to draw these little helpful lines. I will say it does make it messier, but for the sake of probably what you're doing, it's going to be fine. Now, and I'm on the fraction setting, so therefore I can just say 5 7/16 plus 1 inch, so 6 space 7 divided by 16, and it will jump up to it, just where I need it to be. And so I don't lose this line, I'm going to throw in that little line so I can find it easier in a second. I'm going to click this endpoint, and then I'm going to flip around, shift click, and when I get to the perfect spot, there we go. See how it's like, it's trying to do a rectangle going vertically, but if I get down right when I hit horizontal, it will flip to being a horizontal rectangle. And that's exactly the size I need it to be, 58.5 by 22. Click that. And this was the bottom of the hood, so I'm going to click and I'm going to extend upwards 0.75. And now we've got that shelf in there. And nope. Right now I selected all of it, make a component. I'm gonna call this the sub bottom actually. Or you call it shelf, whatever makes sense to you. Create. And then let me turn these. I knew there's a way to do it. Just gotta remember how. Display, here we go. There's a way to hide it. Now I'm getting distracted. I'm here, I swear. Golly, I know I'm like right on top of it. I know that I just like cannot remember. That's okay. I don't want to get delayed on this little tiny thing. No, I just need this gigantic thing to go away. Okay, that's fine. So we got our hood up here. It's 6 7/16 from the bottom. And we need to do a cutout in this panel. So now that I've made this a panel, I'm just gonna move it away. Nope. I'll see that little line now got stuck in there. I'll go ahead and delete it so that way it cleans up this. Oh golly. Well, I'll keep it because it'll let me drop that easier in there. So it looks silly at the moment. You can delete it if you want. Anyways, so on this board, let me get to a spot where I can actually see it. I'm going to look top down. There we go. We're going to go back to the Arezzo this way. Okay. Scroll back down to our cutouts. So these are mounting hole locations. So if you wanted to do it right on the money, you could do that. But this is the cutout it recommends for this shelf or sub bottom. And we put it in there. So it needs to be D wide and B deep, A away from the wall. So it needs to start off 11/16 away from the back. And that's actually from the wall. So remember, I have that nailer in there. That's actually 3/4. But I'm just going to go ahead and do it anyways. So that way it's from the inside of what I'm building it to. So I'm going to consider my nailer the wall. So that way it just perfectly, like I said, I control the variables that I'm providing. So that way I know it fits inside my vent housing. So I'm going to 11/16 forward. We're going to do B 15 and 5/16 forward, and we're going to draw a rectangle that is 28 and 5/16 wide. So I might have to come back to this in a second. We'll do 11/16, 11/16 and 15 5/16. I'm just going to go over here to the side and figure out the exact location in a second. 11 divided by 16 is going to automatically do that. And then 15 space 5/16. And then that's our spot there. And now we just need to figure out the left and right. So I'm actually going to come over here to the midpoint and the sub bottom. Great. And then I'm trying to come up forward. Line it. Okay. I don't know why I didn't line up the first time. Do this again. All the way forward to where it lines up. Sometimes you have to drag over here, get that little control line going. Okay, sorry, I'm going to backtrack 1 second. I wanted to draw it exactly this size. The reason why is because there's a trick to do it faster. So there, this line is the 15 and 5/16. It's 15 and 5/16, yeah. And we need to make it 28 and 15/16 wide. So when I do my rectangle tool, I can go to this midpoint, hit the control button, and it'll go from the midpoint. And then I want it to line up with this. So let's say 15 5/16, comma 28. Oh, my brain is too early because to remember these numbers. 28 and 15/16. 28 and 15/16. 15 5/16, comma 28 15/16. There. Gosh, sorry guys. I'm sure y'all are a lot more on top of it than I am. But in my defense, I'm doing this before I go to work. Now 6 a.m. But excuses. I'm gonna square that up at the bottom. Oh, sorry. I am building a different shape. I have now that I've got this placed, click into my step assembly. I can follow those points that I already made. And then click down. Delete my reference lines here. And that cutout's there. Perfect. Now I can select this component, do the move tool off of this little reference line I had, drop it right there. So now I've gotten the cutout exactly the size that it needs for this opening. But now we have to do the sub bottom because the hood itself will now have a gap over here. So it's 46.5, and this inside, if we wanted to be reminded, like I said, I'm not doing datas at the moment, it is 58.5 left to right, inside to inside. It's 58.5 to get to 46.5. That's 12 inches difference. And so therefore each of these needs a 6-inch, we'll have a 6-inch gap on both sides. So we need to add a 6-inch actual bottom, or if you want to call those fillers. So I'm going to go up here and then we're going to draw a 1-inch line. And then snap to that point. I'm going to flip around here. See if it, no, it doesn't want to. Of course not. That's right. Actually, you can draw it from the side like this. So go up, go over. I'm not gonna do the thickness. So 22. Sorry, my microphone's right in the way. 22.75 tall. And we're just gonna make these 6 inches deep. I'm gonna spin it around. Two, 0.75. 6 inches. And now we've got this real bottom, the sub bottom, the opening for the cutout. And I'm going to make these a component real quick. Oh, come on. Make a component, left, bottom. Make a component, right. Okay, so quick overview for the person that's like me that skipped through all this because it's not for their program and I just need to see what you're doing. This is what we did. We looked at the Arezzo vent hood. We found its height. We were gonna put a shelf right at the top of the mounting holes, and C is the height that we need that shelf to be up. We added an inch, so it's 5 7/16. We added an inch, so we did 6 7/16 and started that shelf. We went down to the cutout. We made that shelf fill the bottom, and we cut out a hole that's exactly to these measurements, and then had the shelf up here with that hole in it. Then, because I made a 60-inch wide version, if you made it exactly 48 to fit the 46.5-inch hood, as it shows, you can do that and move on. But I made a 60-inch version, so that way we had to add a 6-inch filler on both sides to fit right at the bottom of the hood over this direction on both sides. And then that is what this is. So that's just what you wanted to know on what it would look like to place those in there. So I've done this at least a dozen times over the last few years and never have got a call back that it does not work. But it depends on your appliances and Just I'm not taking fault. I'm just telling you the fact of the matter of what I have experienced. Now, back to any carpenter that's trying to follow along. How do you get this to where you can dimension it? I'm going to leave this all. I'm going to select everything, and we're going to make a copy. And then we're going to paste the copy over here to the side. And we're going to select these components. I'm going to do the move tool. Let's get everything kind of blown up. Just get everything in a weird location so I actually know where everything is. Great. Okay. Now we want everything to be the same dimension or the same plane. So we're going to rotate the parts. Orbit. Rotate. So I'm going to click that and we want to go up. I'm going to rotate it down and it should snap to 90. Bottom right shows my angle. Yep. That's at 90 now. At this point. It's at 90 now. Rotate to these. Nope, nope, keep going. There we go. 90 now. And these other parts. And then rotate 90. Perfect. Should be all my parts on the same plane. Yep. So now I'm going back to my move tool. And then we're going to drop these. We're really far away from it, but this line here. There we go. And make sure you always click the same point just to make it easier. I'm going to click the top left point from the top side. Click that. Drop it on this line. Click that one. Drop it on that line. This one. Drop it here. Oh, come on. See, this one doesn't want to do it. Point that one there. Put this one here. And put this last one at the end. Perfect. Okay, now we got all our parts lined up. Let's go and delete this line. Now that we're doing this as well, I'm going to edit this component by double clicking on it, and I'm going to delete this line finally. There we go. Uh-oh. This one did not perfectly get flattened, which would be problematic. Haste makes waste, my old math teacher said. There we go. No, it's a flash. Okay, so now I can see all these parts from the sky. And Joe, down here, you should have the dimension tool. Every tutorial you'll see it says that's the dimension tool. It doesn't show up for some reason, but if I do dimensions, I can set a shortcut that says, but then it's not doing it. Either way, selected it. Oh, it's down here. Anyways, zoom up. And then I'm going to just do from point to point. Point to point. Make those dimensions, yeah, snap to the same location. You sometimes have to rotate it to make sure it's going on the correct plane that you want. This one's going to have a cutout, so we can dimension that cutout as well. So you want to go over, make sure it snaps that line. It's really not snapping, is it? Well, we can do it this way. We're going to reverse engineer it. 11/16. It really does not want to click. I'll figure that out in a second. I think I need to go into the component and do it. Oh, let me get these going. Yeah, song should pop in my head. How about you? This Sketchup will be easier to mark. Let's get these points right here. Yeah. It's funny, I was thinking about it yesterday for some reason, and I really don't know why, because I've never been that big of a listener. My Chemical Romance's Welcome to the Black Parade is, for some reason, my brain's default song. When I'm just driving around, if I start singing a song, it's legitimately 9 times out of 10 Welcome to the Black Parade, even though I only listen to it once a year. It's very strange. Don't know why. But it's only the intro. Well, it's the only words I know is the intro. But the intro is pretty epic. Yeah. That number feels wrong. No, that's right. Yeah. Okay. And then let's see if I can get this dimension part for this. So I made it a shortcut, so it's at the bottom now. By golly, he does not want to do that. That's okay. He'll make it work. I'll just do a rectangle here. Do that. And now do a dimension tool. I don't know why it doesn't want to snap to those points. Make sure I'm on the right plane. I missed my other measurement. Keep everything clean and happy. This is when I really got to shift and do the scroll click. So now I got this dimensions. Let me delete these random construction lines I had to do for really no reason, I would say, but oh well. Every program's got its bugs. That's really messy, but yeah. At least now, this isn't perfect. There's couplets extensions, like I said, but you can go in, do a screenshot tool. If you're on Windows, just type in at your search bar snipping tool. Just save that to your desktop taskbar thingy with the thing at the bottom. It's very helpful. I would just, if I was building this in my shop, I would do it the freeway, and I would just dimension these like this, all the way out. Obviously, you have to zoom in to make sure you see those, and then just screenshot that entire thing. But anyways, that is how to make a wooden vent hood, at least a square wooden vent hood that fits the Elica Arezzo hood, going up to the 46-inch model for something like 48-inch range. Listen to your own appliance specs on the height that the vent hood needs to be up and all of that. But that's a general idea of how you would size it if you were doing it oversized, adding the fillers as well, and then how to dimension it if you want to use SketchUp for free. If you're just some carpenter, on site or whatever, and you really don't want to pay for anything, you just need it done. I hope this helped. Just in general, if you have any design problems that you need help with, drop them in the comments. I love a good problem. There was something at work yesterday. Somebody trying to lay out a room, and they were like, "It's just not working." Music to my ears. My brain cannot not think about your job now because you've given me a problem. So drop them in the comments. I want to hear your issues because it's what I live for. Anyways, this has been Innovative Drafting with Casey, and I hope you have an awesome, blessed day and best of work, best of luck out there building